Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Tuesday still. It's Tuesday. In fact, I'm getting a shot of them. Don't need them on. They're out of my ears. Don't buy headphones like them. Rubbish. Anyway, you're looking absolutely amazing. Let's get straight into the meat and potatoes, shall we? Because we've got some stuff to go over. We've got some stuff to talk about. And that is the power of could-be's and the Idaho 4 case. Because there are a lot of could-be's that people are taking as defo-be's. Definitely be. When they're not, they're just could-be's. I showed you in video 1 earlier today. If you missed it, you need to go and check it out. After this video, of course, not right now. Because we spoke about the DNA on the knife sheath that everybody believes Bryan Kohberger, not everybody, just people who can't pay attention. They believe that Bryan Kohberger's DNA is on this knife sheath that was found at the scene of this crime, and that the FBI did some work that got his name and then passed it back over. I'll show this one more time on this video here, because this shows Corporal Payne, Brett Payne, lead investigator, Captain King. Well, he turns around and says, well, the FBI didn't give me their name, didn't give me Bryan's name. At no point did they say that his DNA is on this knife sheath. He didn't say it. So the FBI didn't give you Bryan Kohberger, or they gave you Bryan Kohberger's name, but not any point did they say, yes, his DNA on that knife sheath. They just give him a name and said, that's someone who you need to look into. See, people, there's the devil's in the detail. We say that. Do you know what I mean? Devil's in the detail. It's the Kansas City shuffle. Because you're focusing on this DNA, and you think DNA, Bryan Kohberger's DNA on here, and then you're told about this work that the FBI do, you then miss all the little bits because you skim reading it. You miss the bit where they talk about that the sample's partial ambiguous and provides no answer. Certainly doesn't point to Bryan Kohberger. But then they give Bryan Kohberger's name to Moscow Police Department and say, that's your name. So you put 2 and 2 together, or 1 and 3 together probably, and come up with 17 or whatever it is that you've done. But because you've seen Bryan Kohberger, you've seen knife sheath, you've seen DNA, you've seen FBI, you've seen work done, family tree, and all this work, and then they have Bryan Kohberger. You've put all the bits together, which is the danger what the jury does, because this is where could-be comes into the equation. Could it have been Bryan Kohberger's DNA? Well, we was led to believe that it could have been, but this could have been Bryan Kohberger's DNA has now turned into definitely his DNA, and not only that, but the white Hyundai Elantra is now Bryan Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra. Is it his? Could be. Not defo-B, though. Not defo-B, just could be his. Or could it? Because if it could be his, then what of Moscow Police Department? What is in the PCA about them turning around and saying, well, Bryan Kohberger, we couldn't find that he was in the area between the hours of 3 and 5 a.m., which is the time that this crime took place. But they can't find him in this area at this time. It's in the PCA. But then what they try and do is they try and then say that, well, his mobile phone might not have been reporting to the tower, and which is for varying reason. Could be that he switched his phone off, because through things that we've seen in the past, we understand that some people could turn their phone off to try and hide where they are. But they don't explicitly state that Bryan Kohberger's phone is off. Could it be off? Well, it could be. Is it off? Well, we don't know. It isn't defo-B off, though, is it? It's just could be off. Because he could be somewhere else in a poor signal area, which they're actually turning around and saying it could be possible. Could be possible that he's somewhere else. Because they're not explicitly stating that he was in the area. They're not. In fact, they're saying we couldn't actually place him in this area because his phone was switched off. So we don't know where he was. We just couldn't place him at the scene of the crime between the hours of 3 and 5. That's what the PCA says. So we've got a situation so far, just in these 2 videos I've done today, where we've found out that law enforcement have said in the PCA, well, we can't place him at the scene of the crime between the hours of 3 and 5. But what we're attributing that to is the potential that he might have turned his phone off. He could have turned his phone off. Did he though? Well, we don't know. Because what they now want to do is, where they've turned around and said, well, we're going to have to guess now. that we think he drove this way. Well, we can provide you with evidence or data that would support that. Do you want it? No, I don't exist. I don't want to see that. Hide that up. Now, could it help? It could help. Is it going to help? It probably not. Because if you knew it was defo going to help, you would defo want to see it. But instead, you defo want to bury it, and that's not right, is it? That's not right. Could Bryan Kohberger have stalked these people? Could he? Well, he could have, but did he? Well, it don't seem like he did, especially if you listen to the prosecution and the defence, both saying that there's no evidence of stalking whatsoever, despite what you're being told by some of the families. Do you know what I mean? Who would have you believe that Bryan Kohberger entered into this house with a kill kit? Did Bryan Kohberger enter into the house with a kill kit? Well, he could have, but did he? Well, it don't appear that he did. Don't appear that he did. We've got no proof. We've got no definitive proof that would show you that. Same as the white Hyundai Elantra. And furthermore, right, so Bryan Kohberger leaves this knife sheath be Bryan Kohberger's knife sheath even. Well, it could be his, but is it his? What proof have we got? Well, it's a bit of a strange one to say the person who was in this house did this crime. They walk out of this house, they're not running, they're not fucking in a, whoa, got to get out of here, they walk out, patiently, walk out. But they've left the knife sheath behind. Left that. Just walking out. They're seen walking out in their fireman's outfit after saying, I'm here to help. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to get at is there are so many could-bes. Could be, coulda. But there's not many absolute certainties. Like, there's a load of people that are saying that Bryan Kohberger's DNA is under Madison Mogan's fingernails. Could he have DNA under her fingernails? Well, he coulda, up to the point where they do independent testing and removes him from the equation. Could there be other people involved in this crime? Could there be other people who are not Bryan Kohberger? Absolutely could be. And what is the evidence to support that? Well, the evidence to support that is multiple other DNA sources at this scene of the crime that are seemingly being hidden to a degree. It feels that way. Now, could I be right? Well, I could be right. Could I be wrong? Of course I could. I could be wrong. But we do know that there are other DNA samples. And with respect to Bryan Kohberger's DNA, well, where did they get Bryan Kohberger's name from if it wasn't through the IGG, which it seemingly wasn't, because Brett Payne turns around and says, well, the FBI never said that Bryan Kohberger's DNA was on the knife sheath. So if it weren't on the knife sheath, where did they get his name from? Were they already looking at him? Were they already looking into Bryan Kohberger and he just seemed to be a good match for this crime? Could have been. But my point is, if you're someone who's following this case, when you look at something and that is what you're using to convict this guy, send him down a river, execute him, whatever, step back, have a long, hard look at what you're saying as the evidence and say, is that right? Is that right? Is it a defo be or is it a could be? Because I'll ask you this now. Would you want to execute Bryan Kohberger on nothing more than could be's? Or would you feel that if you're going to execute someone, or even at this point in the game, turn around and say, well, he deserves to be executed, that shouldn't be based on a bunch of could-bes. It could be his DNA. He could have been in the area. He could be driving a white Hyundai Elantra outside the house. He could have been stalking him. When a lot of these could-bes are not actually supported by anything. A lot of these could-bes originated from people who are investigated or told to investigate Bryan Kohberger, seemingly from the FBI, who seemingly would suggest that the DNA wasn't on the knife sheath. And there's many people who believe that Bryan Kohberger, and I'm not even getting back into the weeds on the under the fingernail shit, but the knife sheath, the linchpin, the thing that everybody believes this was the catalyst. Well, again, the FBI never said. What could be is your defo be? What could be are you hanging on to attribute this crime to Bryan Kohberger? And is the penny starting to drop here? Again, I will say one more time. PCA stipulates that they cannot place Bryan Kohberger at the scene between 3 and 5. They attribute that to his phone possibly being off, or he might just be out of signal. But they're not explicitly stating his phone is off. They're just saying it's possible. That's one of the reasons that it's not transferred. Another reason is that he simply isn't in an area that he can obtain a signal. Just can't. Could it have been Bryan Kohberger who did this crime? It could have been. Have we been shown evidence to suggest that it is? Well, seemingly not. Just a load of possiblies. Could be is, might be is. Love you all, and I will catch you all possibly in video 3 later. So it's not just 2 for Tuesday like Domino's. We're better than Domino's over here. Now I'm hungry. Love you all. Mwah.